Hello and welcome to Our Japan, your hub for all things Japanese. I'm Kiyoshi, and with me as always is Roza.
Hey, this is Akino Roza.
Alright, Roza, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good, Kiyoshi.
Good.
We are back with our second episode.
How was your week?
My week was pretty good. See, I have this thing where like I don't remember what I did all week, so I have to check my schedule. So basically, my mind's a blank. I don't remember what I did the day before, unless I check what my schedule says.
Like really? Like you actually forget what you did?
Yeah.
The day before?
Yep. I am way.
Wow.
My RAM is like over capacity. Has been over capacity for a long time, and I've given up trying to keep up with it. So.
Wow.
You know that pensieve in Harry Potter?
Yeah.
Where like Dumbledore.
Is that how you pronounce it? Is that how Rosa pronounces it? Pensieve?
I don't know. Is it wrong?
I think it's a pensive. I think in the movie they pronounce it pensive.
I guess that was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like pensieve. Is that your personal way of?
Okay, it's Rosa's pronunciation of that thing. It's my pensieve. So basically, I feel like that, except for my like memory of schedules or what's going on, what I need to have planned. It's basically I put it into my schedule, and that's like once it's there, it's out of my head, and I don't have to worry about it because if I need to know what I'm doing, I can just check my schedule.
Okay. So you're calling your schedule your pensieve.
Yes, exactly.
Nice. So what's in your pensieve?
Well, apparently I had a translation deadline, and then I had some recordings, and
do you remember how they went, or do you remember how you felt about how they went?
Oh yeah, I mean they were all fun and the usual thing.
Were they all like special voiceovers for like documentaries on NHK or?
Well, my main thing is my main thing is I'm on an English what is it? An English language show on the radio. So that's Radio Eikaiwa, and so I'm on that. So that has like several recordings throughout the month. So This time around it was.
Where can one hear these?
I don't know if you can hear it from outside Japan. You might be able to.
That's a bummer.
But you need like NHK's like app to listen to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
is it
I think
NHK World type of thing?
No, the regular NHK radio. I think you can also listen to it online too. Should be able to.
And if you Google what? NHK.
We're really getting into
English,
this, huh?
Rosa. You got to plug your things, man.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it'll show up in English, though. NHK Radio Eikaiwa is the program.
Okay.
And
NHK Radio Eikaiwa.
Yes.
And it wouldn't hurt to input your name into that search bar either.
Roza,
right?
Yes, probably. Although, again, I don't know.
Akino Roza, or are you just under Roza?
Akino Roza.
Okay. All right. I'll be on the lookout for that.
But yeah, so that was my week. How about you?
My week has been okay. Yeah, I've started to watch this show called Tokyo Vice. Have you heard of Tokyo Vice?
I have not. Does it have to do with cars?
Not at all.
Or not?
Not at all. There's this guy.
Not at all. Okay.
There's this guy named Jake Adelstein. I never know how to pronounce.
Oh yeah.
The Jewish Steins or whatever. But his name is Jake Adelstein. I'm gonna go with Steen for now. He is. Do you know him?
I think I met him once, maybe.
Wow, you met him. Where? What do you think you met him?
I don't know. It was a long time ago.
But you recall the name.
I think so. I could be wrong because I've seen the name for sure. Like, because it's a small community in Tokyo with people in the industry.
Anyway, Jake Adelstein wrote a book called Tokyo Vice. He is the first foreigner to be a reporter for the Yomiuri Shimbun. And so there's a TV show on HBO Max in the States, or HBO in general. And it stars, what's that guy's name? I always forget this guy's name. So he was in West Side Story. Ansel Elgort, that's his name. Ansel Elgort. And he plays Jake Adelstein. Steen? What did I go with? Steen?
Steen, I think.
Yeah, he was the first foreign language reporter, or foreigner reporter for the Yomiuri Shimbun. And I think in the show they call it like Mainichi Shimbun or something like that. Which is also a real newspaper, but
yes,
they do fictionalize some things. And so it's this guy, Ansel Elgort, in Japan, speaking Japanese. So he's like a white guy trying to, speak Japanese.
Can he speak Japanese?
I doubt it. I severely doubt it. His Japanese is not great in the show. It is not the worst I've heard from like a non-Japanese speaker on a Japanese language, or not Japanese language, but a Japanese produced show or film.
So maybe
he's all right. He's okay. He learned it phonetically, definitely. And there's another white woman on that show, and her Japanese is a little worse, I would say. So definitely they both like learned it phonetically. I mean, that's not a knock on them. It's it is what it is. People
it's not
did not speak Japanese previously.
Yeah, it's not an easy language to learn, right?
Not at all. It's not even an easy language to imitate.
Especially coming from English, I think, definitely.
Especially coming from English. So, it's not a knock on them, but it is very funny to hear them speak Japanese, because they have to speak like long sentences and long lines of dialogue in Japanese sometimes. So I commend them for that. They do pretty good job. It stars Ken Watanabe and Kikuchi Rinko. So
it's a drama.
It's a drama.
Got it.
It's a dramatization of his experiences working at the newspaper. So it's a lot of Yakuza stuff. I think in the book, similar things actually happened, but they dramatized it for television, definitely.
なるほどね.
And so it's a lot of stereotypical, guys without pinkies and guys wearing like sunglasses and like barely intelligible Japanese.
I think since we are on the topic of language, we should go into today's topic. Introduce today's topic. What do you think?
I think that is a great idea. Today's topic being, we're going to talk about how your personality tends to change when you speak Japanese versus when you speak English. Would you say for English speakers only, or for both Japanese people?
Well, I would say for both, but I think I can only speak for myself, so I'm kind of interested to hear what you have to say about that topic too. So, so today's topic's going to be, personality changes, the changes in expressing yourself that you experience depending on the language you use, right? And our Japanese word for today is
Seikaku.
Seikaku da ne. So personality.
Personality. Can you break it down?
You're gonna ask me to break it down.
Kanji. I'm gonna ask you to break it down. You're like the Japanese expert out of the two of us. You can read and write kanji, right? If you break it down, say.
ちょっと待って、性格. I'm so bad at kanji. Okay.
That can't be true.
It's true. I mean, like, obviously, I know enough for daily life and all that, but like, it's not my strong point, I would say.
Forte.
Yeah, that's the word.
You passed the N1, right?
I have never taken any of those tests, actually.
Really? You've never taken any of those tests?
Yep.
I was sitting here thinking that you just like aced and flew through the N1 and like you're at the top of the kanji learners.
I mean, I probably would.
No, am I incorrect? I think you should try. I took the N2 twice, and I failed horribly twice.
The thing is, though, like I don't really feel a need to. You know what I mean? Like
No, definitely you do not. Yeah, you don't need to at all.
Cause
that's mostly for like jobs and stuff like that, right? If you want to work at like a prestigious company or something like that.
I think like for probably like at the level I speak, you can tell that it's not necessary to take a test to kind of figure it out because like way over the minimum requirement for probably most.
Yeah, it totally is. It really is just for if you want to apply for like a job, right? Or if you want to test your like the knowledge you have for yourself to make yourself feel better.
Exactly.
Kind of. So I didn't feel too bad when I failed, twice. Horribly. And I have a friend who failed like 4 times and eventually he got it on like the 5th time. I have another friend who's good at Japanese, but he failed it like twice. So it's not, it's not the end of the world if you fail it.
Well, yeah.
Unless you're trying to work in places.
And also like, part of it, I'm sure, is, test-taking skill too. Because
test-taking skill as well. Nerves is a part of it.
Yeah.
The time limit is a part of it.
Exactly.
It's crazy. And you've never... that's crazy. I assumed you just took the N1 and aced it, but it makes me feel kind of better about failing it now that you did not even take it.
So, Seikaku. Sei is the kanji for gender or sex or basically the nature. It has an overall meaning of like the nature of things, right? And kaku is like status or rank. So I guess the nature of your status. Your personality is the nature of your status.
The sexual status.
Not the sexual. No. Don't be teaching our listeners.
Sexual status, gender status.
As a note, do not fall for Kiyoshi's definitions.
Oh, come on.
I
give the best lessons.
You give the best definitions.
For somebody who barely can read and write kanji. But yes, okay, so sex or nature.
No, not sex.
Status.
Yes.
Okay, not sex. Not that type of sex though,
But it can be.
But like nature and status.
That's right.
Together, you put it together, it becomes Seikaku.
Yes.
Which is your personality.
That's right.
And we think personalities tend to change, especially if you get deep into learning Japanese.
Well, so this is what I think. I think that like obviously language shapes a lot of our culture and the way we express ourselves, right? Because having a certain word available or not in that language that you use to communicate will determine if you kind of are in tune with that feeling. Like one common example that like I really hate personally, but so a lot of like people in Japan will shouldn't say a lot, but sometimes people in Japan will be like, 外国人は肩こりするの? So, which is basically, oh, do foreigners get like katakori? And katakori is like a specific term of like kind of getting like shoulder pain, like knots in your shoulders back area.
Yeah, that's how I understand it.
But like there's no specific word in English for katakori, right? So I'm
shoulder
guessing.
Pain?
Yeah, but like it's not thing, like just one vocabulary thing, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm guessing brought about this misunderstanding that foreigners don't experience shoulder pain because they're superhuman or something. I'm guessing the issue was that there is no word for it in English, and so like when Japanese people try to ask, "Do you have katakori?" then the answer is no, because unless you know that, oh, katakori refers to this like pain that you experience, and so the answer is yes. But if you're just like trying to, if you think the meaning is something else, you're going to say no, right? And so then you're going to get to the point where Japanese people think that foreigners don't have katakori, which everyone has back pain or shoulder knots. Yeah. If you have a computer, you're going to have
If you walk and work and do anything,
yes,
yeah.
Definitely. If you have a smartphone.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of things where it's like a Japanese person will ask you, do you guys over there have like bread? Like, do you guys drink soda? Like really silly, like of course we do. We are both human. We both have that thing. But they do think like, oh man, they're kind of I don't want to say primitive. But they do have like an old school, like they've been isolated from the world type of a viewpoint.
Yeah, you can definitely encounter. Yeah, you can encounter kind of that. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but naivete. How do you say it?
Naivete. There you go.
Okay.
That's kind of like when you go into like a. Yeah, I think naivete is a pensive type of a word. But
watch it be totally wrong.
Sort of like they do have that sort of like, oh man, wow, you're a foreigner. Do you guys chew with your teeth in your mouth? Like they have this weird, as if we're like actual aliens. And like, man, yes, we have.
But you know,
jelly here.
but certain points.
We wear shoes.
It's important to notice that like certain points do differ depending on the culture, right? Like for example, oh, you guys don't slurp when you have soup. Whereas, you know, in Japan, it's like you slurp your ramen. You must slurp.
You have to slurp.
And
your ramen. But it's always like really.
I didn't know this, but like again, this is another thing where I'm wondering: is it really like people can't do it, or like people just feel embarrassed about doing it, so they can't do it, kind of thing, or they physically aren't able to slurp? So like, I've heard. Some Japanese people say like, oh no, there's people that like just literally can't slurp, like they're not able to do it. And I'm like, really? Or maybe it's just a.
Some people I've heard about that where it's like
you have
really hard to slurp.
Okay, so maybe that's a thing.
That's definitely a personality thing we have to change when you go to Japan. Coming from a place like America where we're taught to not slurp, because Americans cannot slurp ramen properly. At all.
Really?
Because Japan, you didn't experience that when you first went there?
Not really.
Like you ate a bowl of ramen in front of somebody Japanese.
No, I just slurped.
You slurped what way though? Did you slurp the American way?
I don't know how do you slurp the American way.
It's because Japanese people no. So when you slurp ramen and other noodles, the Japanese way is. Your aperture of your mouth is a little open, and you suck in like air with the noodles. Don't laugh at me.
You've really studied this in depth, haven't you?
No, yeah. Oh, yes, I have. I've seen many a friend.
The aperture of the mouth is open.
The aperture of the mouth is a little bigger, and then you take in a bunch of air with the noodles.
I love
you get
this.
That, like,
I have
perfect,
to say,
like,
we have to name this episode "The Aperture of the Mouth."
The aperture of the mouth. The subtitle, right?
Yes.
And so, the way we slurp in America is really tight. And you like a kissing type of. So the aperture is very tight. And so when you suck up a noodle, it like flips and flaps around and spreads all the sauce around because we typically do it with spaghetti or whatever. So it's like spraying everywhere. The Japanese way, you know, it sort of you can't. It doesn't allow for that to happen. I guess I'm trying to say the Japanese way of slurping is the correct way, and the Americans don't know how to do that. And I see my American friends always struggle with that. I'm like, dude, man,
open up your aperture. Come on,
open up your aperture, man. What's going on? But that's a personality change, right? When you come to Japan,
I think I have learned a lot.
Change that thing about you.
I've learned a lot in these past 5 minutes. I never knew there was a difference in aperture of the mouth with slurping.
You've lived there for like 11 years. You never noticed?
Well, I didn't study it. Like, I was like, okay, just.
I guess so. Well, maybe you don't eat a lot of ramen. I eat a lot of ramen, so.
I don't eat that much ramen.
Yeah.
I eat udon sometimes.
Yeah. Udon, I think, is less important to like.
To slurp.
Get your aperture right or whatever, but it's still you still can't tighten your lips.
Yeah.
Like a butthole.
So basically,
or else everything will flap around.
So basically, our lesson here is that you don't want the noodles to flap around. So to prevent that, you need to open up your aperture, the aperture of your mouth.
And also you have to eat ramen when it's hot.
Yes.
You have to eat ramen when it's hot. So you want to suck in that air with it
and
help
cool it down
as it enters your mouth.
That's right.
Yeah.
See, you guys are learning so much.
They're learning so much about your mouth is a butthole in America and in Japan. You open the aperture in Japan, but it also takes a personality change.
Yes.
You have to sort of like change that thing about you because that's like one of the only aspects in Japan where you're sort of not expected to be shy. You gotta like open yourself up, just like the aperture.
Yeah.
And just take everything in.
Let all the light in. That's right.
Let all of it in.
Photography, aperture light. Yeah. Okay. Well, I actually have an interesting story about this. This recently happened to me.
Okay.
So I was calling the embassy. The American embassy in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And because I needed to go in for a certain thing, a processing thing. So the thing is, like, so usually you make an appointment on the website, and the problem is the thing that I needed to do, there was no category for it on the website for the appointments. So, of course, like, I don't want to make a general appointment and then go in and be like, they have them tell me that, oh, this is the wrong type of appointment. You need to do it again. And then I have to go back home and do an appointment again and wait again. So I wanted to avoid that. So I decided to call in advance and be like, hey, I need to do this. How do I make the appointment? I just want to make sure I do the right thing. So I call the embassy, and a Japanese lady picks up. But I figure since it's the American embassy, I'll just speak in English. So this is the first time I called. So I call and I say blah, blah, blah. And she says, oh, well, I'm not sure, so can you try emailing us through the website? I wasn't too happy about that, but I said, okay, I'll do that. So I emailed through the website, and 3-4 weeks passed, I never got a reply. So a few days ago, I call again, and I think the same lady picked up actually. And so again, I'm speaking English, and she, and this time, I'm pretty annoyed because I'm like, I need to make an appointment for blah, blah, blah. And she says, oh, can you send an email through the website? And I'm like, well, no, I did that and nobody replied to me. And I need to know in advance if this is the right Like, I don't want to have to go back and forth. And this is the tone that I was speaking in. Like, I don't want to have to go back and forth in case the appointment is the wrong type of appointment. So can you please get somebody to tell me? Can you please ask somebody who knows what the right thing to do is? And
her English was... she spoke English?
She spoke English, but like I could see that maybe either she wasn't understanding the entirety of what I was saying, or she wasn't sure how to communicate what she wanted to say. So like when I said that, then she was like, she tried to kind of repeat what I said, but it didn't seem to be getting through as clearly. So then I was like, じゃあ、日本語で話します。先日、3、4週間前に、メールしたんですけど、何も返事なかったんで、違う項目で予約して直接行ったらまたそこで違うって言われたくないんで、事前に確認したいんですけど。So like that, and I'm sure like
for the listeners, that was the translation of what you just said in English. Basically.
Yes, but what I noticed was like my tone changed to be much nicer. Like even though...
Did you notice that? Did you feel it on the inside? Like you changed on purpose, or
no, like,
was it more of a like it naturally?
It's a natural thing that occurs, I think, because like if you talk in a really annoyed tone in Japanese, it sounds like really harsh, I think. And I feel like you can still kind of convey your annoyed, your irritation, but still be very polite. You know what I mean? So
I do it.
As I was talking, like I was thinking to myself at the same time, oh, this is really interesting, because like it was just an automatic switch of like talking in English and explaining it in English. I was like really annoyed, but then switching to Japanese, like I could explain the situation kind of more calmly and, you know, with a nicer tone, but still get across what I needed to get across.
Okay. And did she change as well?
Oh, well, she well, I mean, then she was like, oh, I understand now. And then she called, you know, the person in charge of the thing that I needed to do. But yeah, so that was an interesting thing that I noticed the other day. And I do notice this a lot, like in general too. I think this is why I personally feel almost more comfortable speaking in Japanese, because I can kind of express myself the way I want to express myself. Do you have like how do you feel? How do you experience that language switch?
I never had like in such a drastic where I was in a situation where I was speaking English and I was like, I gotta change, and then went into Japanese and suddenly my personality changed. Nothing that drastic, but I do notice in when I'm talking, or if I'm talking to like two people, one's not Japanese and one's Japanese, and then I do like, I'm more, you know, I wouldn't say jovial but like I'm one way with my American friend, and then when I go to Japanese, I am more open.
In Japanese,
it's about what we talked. Yeah, in Japanese, it's like what we talked about last week. Where it's like when you encounter somebody Japanese, you get like kind of jazzed or whatever, and so it's not, you know, not like your story, but I do notice a slight change, because I've been in a lot of situations like at parties and stuff like that. where I'm like talking to a bunch of American guys, and then I'll change. I'll turn. It's more of a not a big to small change. It's more of a total personality change where I'm one way in American, like what's up, dude? How's it going, bro? Or like I don't really talk like that, like some like fucking some asshole Chad guy, but I would then go to like the Japanese friend, and then I'll become like a Japanese comedian type, just a totally different person. Like I'm two different people, right? Like there's an American Kiyoshi and there's a Japanese Kiyoshi, and I'll notice a lot. I'll notice it a lot when I'm talking to somebody here, and there's nobody Japanese around, and I'm just talking to my American friend, and I'll just think like, I'm really different when I'm around this person versus when I'm around somebody Japanese. So that's just a very interesting observation. I always, every once in a while, will catch myself thinking about. Another thing is voices change.
Oh yeah.
When you're speaking English and Japanese. I'll remember the first time. This must have been like 15 years ago or something like that. I think even before I was able to speak fluently, so it might have been like 20 years ago, or maybe even longer. But I was watching news, like NHK type of thing, and the broadcaster was a woman, and she was fluent in both. Like I think she was born in America or something like that. And I was just watching it, and she was talking in English, and then she started. I think there was a guest or something like that, and she just turned on her Japanese, and immediately her voice went high, and it was like a stark contrast. And I was like, oh, man, voices really do change. Like when you speak English, it's way down here, and as soon as you open up Japanese, you get high, you get higher, for whatever reason. What do you think that is attributed to? Is that the Japanese is like a more because the stereotype for Japanese, at least for men, is that they speak with a low grumble and they sound mad all the time.
Well,
it's like
you mean for Japanese men
in normal conversation for Japanese men, yes, and that's because people watch too many samurai films, or yakuza films, or whatever. But I don't think that's the case for like normal everyday conversation.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know that many people that really speak both. I think I'd have to say for myself, like it does go kind of higher and more like soothing.
I noticed when you did the switch a couple of minutes ago. Yeah, I could tell.
Like
it
it
from
feels
your one way.
It feels better to speak in Japanese, if that makes sense. Like
I understand. You're definitely softer in Japanese. You're not harsh at all in either language. But when you speak Japanese, you get like ultra soft.
Yeah, and I think I prefer being like ultra soft and being able to express myself in that kind of tone, whereas like in English there's a lot more I don't know, sharp corners, and like you have to be very specific about your words, whereas I feel like in Japanese it's also really nice to be able to be, and this is also a thing that like sometimes people complain about Japanese, is that like people are not clear when they say things.
Oh yeah.
Like there's a lot of ambiguity.
You mean, oh yeah.
Yeah, they
it's like a 95% ambiguity.
Yeah, like はっきりしてない. So it's not like clear cut, right? But I think that's like the wavelength that I prefer to be on. Like I'm comfortable there.
Okay.
And so that's why I feel very at ease like when I'm expressing myself in Japanese, because
that's a good word to describe it. Ease.
Yeah. It's an interesting
at ease.
It's an interesting what's the word?
Dynamic
or 現象
in Japanese or English?
面白い現象だね let me look up the dictionary. Phenomenon, that's the word.
Yeah. Do you think I do think, because I've come across a lot of people who just cannot get Japanese down. And I know a lot of people who have gotten Japanese very well. I have thought about this a lot, and I do think you have to forcibly change yourself if you're non-Japanese going into a Japanese society, and you want to get the language down. I think you got to change. You got to become Japanese. You got to sort of turn Japanese in a way.
Well, it also depends on your original personality, right? I think.
Yeah. Like, oh, definitely, yeah.
For me, and probably maybe even for you, like I never felt that I was like kind of fitting into, I guess, would you say the American personality? So for me, it wasn't more like I had to change. It was more of like, oh, this fits my characteristics much better. Like I don't have to change. Whereas like in English, like you do kind of have to be aggressive and like more like forward, and you have to be proactive to get things done, right?
Yes.
Whereas in Japan and in Japanese culture and language, it's not so much, there's not so much pressure to do that, because that's part of the culture. So if that matches you better, I think it's much easier to adapt to the environment as well.
I agree. The people who I see having trouble assimilating or sort of getting the language or getting a grasp of the language tend to be the outgoing, quote unquote, American types. They're kind of like, I wouldn't say loud, but they're kind of like, jovial. And the ones who pick it up quickly are sort of subdued types, like me, like you. And they're able to transform themselves easier than the guys who are the people who are more American. I think I have I've seen a lot of examples of that type. They can't turn off the Americanness. If you know what I'm saying. Yeah. I think you have to you got to change that personality just a little bit. You don't got to, completely become Japanese, but you got to sort of at least be able to adjust. Yeah. Adjust every so often and sort of, I guess, get a switch, create a switch, and then turn that switch off. And then get into the Japanese mindset. If you really want to get the language. I mean, if you don't care, like, whatever, right? But if you really want to get this language down, you got to, like I said, just watch a bunch of TV, see how people are, talk to a bunch of people.
Well, yeah, and
turn your Americanness off.
Language and culture are very, very intertwined, right? So it only makes sense that, like, you need one to match the other. Otherwise, it's difficult to fully express yourself in that language. But yeah, so I guess I don't know what the demographic for our listeners currently is, but I'm guessing there's people who are interested in Japan, or maybe even Japanese people who are kind of listening to hear natural English, American English speaking, to kind of learn the language. So, I think like this kind of understanding of like, oh, you do, like, 逆に, like, on the other hand, you can even, if your goal is to learn the language, either Japanese or English, you can kind of like approach it through trying to adjust your personality, and that can kind of come out in your word usage and your communication as well. So I think that's an interesting point for our listeners to keep in mind. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. I know I learned a lot about mouth aperture, and perhaps more than I wanted to know.
when you eat ramen and when you speak the language, I think maybe
that's I have to say this. That is actually a huge point to remember, is that like the mouth aperture is totally different with English and Japanese.
Oh yeah.
Right?
See, I did that on purpose. Yeah.
You knew what you were doing. You've had this all planned, didn't you?
Pointing to my temple, indicating that I'm very smart.
But you know, like when speaking in Japanese, and this is also a thing that, you know, might help you if you're learning Japanese. Moving your mouth, like opening the mouth and, you know, making different shapes with your lips is not really necessary for Japanese. So if you kind of get those nuances down of like speaking without moving your mouth so much, that might help you with like the pronunciation as well. And at the same time with English as well, like if you are trying to learn English, like move that mouth, open up that aperture.
You gotta open that,
You gotta slurp that ramen.
I like to call it. You gotta slurp that ramen in order to learn English.
That's right.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like when you're speaking Japanese, it is sometimes you do come off as like a ventriloquist.
Yeah.
In a way, in that you move the inside of your mouth a little more than you would the outside of your mouth.
That's right.
And you move maybe your tongue. Yeah, the way you move your tongue.
So before things get, you know, into the Shimoneta area, I think we should bring this episode to a close.
Shimoneta, that's a good word for a later episode.
Yes,
but for
you guys
now,
can look forward to that.
We'll cut it here.
You can look forward to
remember it now though.
Shimoneta.
It's gonna come up.
Yes.
It's gonna come up. Shimoneta. Yeah.
So
but anyway,
we'll wrap this up
stop
for
it here,
today.
Though.
That's right.
Yes.
And yeah, hopefully you guys learned a lot, and you'll tune in again next time.
If anybody has any questions, please drop us an email at ourjapanpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll answer your questions on the podcast. And please subscribe. Give us a comment if you didn't like something. Tell us. If you did like something, please tell us. And we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. We'll see you all next time. This is Kiyoshi and Rosa. See ya. Bye.
Bye.